They say rock bottom has a smell. To me, it's the stench of stale coffee, piss-soaked concrete, and the lingering cologne of rich men who step over you like you're gum on the sole of their custom-made boots. That morning, I was nobody. A discarded sniper with a worn blanket, a mangy beard, and a rusted dog tag that used to mean something. My name is Dante Cruz, but the world had stopped caring about that a long time ago. I sat across from Voss Tower, watching the glass god structure reflect the sunrise like it was too perfect to be real. Its penthouse, a mile above human problems, belonged to Elias Voss, a man whose face you've seen 1,000 times on magazine covers, keynote stages, and courtroom steps. He had the charisma of a prophet and the soul of a shark. They called him a visionary. I called him a butcher in a Brioni suit. I didn't speak unless someone spoke first. That's rule 1 when you're invisible. But this morning, I broke that rule. "Spare a dollar, sir?" I asked, calm, not desperate. Elias Voss stopped, not because he wanted to, because his shoe hit a crack in the sidewalk. He looked down at me like I was a stain he'd forgotten to scrub off his day. He smirked. "Why don't you sell that trinket around your neck, soldier?" I gripped the dog tag, my brother's name etched across the steel. Miguel Cruz, KIA, Kandahar, 2012. "It's not for sale," I said. Voss crouched like he was doing me a favor, then snatched the chain off my neck in one quick motion. "Everything's for sale," he whispered. Then he tossed it into the gutter, like a coin he didn't care to wish on. The tag clinked against the concrete, and something in me cracked. I didn't move, not then. I watched him walk inside with his entourage, laughing like the devil had just won a bet. But the universe is cruel, and sometimes fair. That night, I was in the alley behind Voss Tower, sipping rainwater from a rusted tin, when the real show began. 2 black SUVs pulled up to the rear entrance, no plates, tinted windows. Standard op for something shady. A man stumbled out, mid-30s, bleeding from the side. He was yelling something about evidence, about a cartel, about trafficking, about Elias Voss. Then the bodyguard stepped forward. Big guy, bald, moved like he'd killed before and didn't need to prove it again. I've seen men like him in the sandbox. Quiet hands, loud results. He pulled a silenced pistol and put 2 rounds in the man's chest. I didn't breathe. Voss stepped out of the second SUV, glanced at the body like he was admiring a broken appliance. Then he looked around, didn't see me. "Leave it," he told the bodyguard. "Nobody here but the ghosts." They got in the SUVs and vanished into the night. I waited. 30 minutes, maybe? 40? Long enough for silence to grow teeth. Then I crept toward the body. The man was dead. His hand was clutched around a cracked burner phone. I pried it loose. Something told me not to turn it on, not yet. If Voss wanted him dead, this thing was probably gold-plated damnation. I wrapped it in cloth and shoved it deep in my coat. I looked at the body again, a clean kill, professional, no blood splash, just the smell of gunpowder and urgency. The man had tried to speak justice. He got a bullet instead. But he dropped something else too, a name. Voss, cartel, they're trafficking. His last breath. Then I noticed something gleaming on concrete. Pick it up, one of a pair of cufflinks. Couldn't study it in the dark, so I tucked it into my pocket. I lit a cigarette with shaking fingers. I hadn't smoked in 6 months. That night, I burned through the whole pack. The next morning, I watched the news on a flickering pawn shop screen. No report of a dead man behind Voss Tower, just a segment on Elias donating $1 million to veterans' causes. That's when the soldier in me stood up. I ducked into an abandoned maintenance tunnel I sometimes called home, removed the burner, disassembled it, checked for trackers, GPS, power pulses. The battery was clean, no active signals. I powered it on, encrypted folders, voice memos, password-protected video files. Most of it was gibberish to the untrained eye, but I wasn't untrained. I served 6 tours, black ops, intel recovery. I've cracked files under mortar fire and read Russian code like bedtime stories. It took me 6 hours to get into the first video. Grainy, shaky cam, but the audio was clear. Shipment scheduled, girls, minors, coming in from Juarez. Voss asking someone to push through the port, that he's got customs on payroll. I stared at the screen. There it was, a billionaire tech icon caught discussing trafficking. Not drugs, not guns, people. I felt the floor sway under me, not from fear, from rage. This wasn't just corruption. This was the kind of evil that grinned in public and butchered in private. For the first time in years, I felt sober. Voss had no idea who I was, no idea what I could do, but he would. He threw away a dog tag. Now I was coming for his empire, and I was bringing hell with me.
You don't come back from the dead quietly. Not if you want the world to hear the bones rattle. By sunrise, I had shaved the beard, burned the blanket, and thrown the street-stained clothes into a dumpster behind a soup kitchen I used to frequent. The man who walked away wasn't homeless anymore. He was unfinished business, wrapped in muscle memory and wrath. I needed gear, old contacts, and something I hadn't used in years. My name, Dante Cruz. That name could still crack doors in dark places if spoken the right way, in the right tone. I started with a visit to the Blackout, a bar beneath the Williamsburg Bridge. No signage, no music, just rusted steel and silence. It wasn't a place for conversation, it was where mercenaries waited for the world to end, one job at a time. Behind the counter stood Moloch, a walking encyclopedia of every war America pretended never happened. His beard was thick, his eyes heavier. We served together once in Kandahar before he vanished into this underworld of ghosts. He looked up as I entered. "Thought you were dead," he grunted, sliding a bourbon down the counter. "I was," I said, catching the glass. "I need eyes, gear, and a place to work." He studied me. "Who are you hunting?" I didn't blink. "Elias Voss." That got a reaction. He leaned back, arms folded, as if measuring whether I was suicidal or just stupid. "You planning to take on the man who owns half of Manhattan, with enough security to guard Fort Knox?" "I've got something he wants to stay buried. He killed a man for it." "Then he'll kill you." I finished the drink in one slow gulp. "He can try." Moloch stared at me a beat longer, then reached under the bar. "Basement key. 3rd locker. Use what you need, leave what you don't. Cameras are off." I nodded. "Thanks." He grabbed my arm before I left. "You go after Voss, you'll stir things that don't sleep easy. There's more than just his name in that mess." "I know." "No, you don't," he growled. "Voss doesn't run his own dirt. He outsources it. There's someone else, an old name. Mercer." That name dropped like a lead pipe in my gut. Mercer. That name hadn't passed my lips in years, and when it did, it tasted like ash. Last I heard, Mercer ran black contracts in Venezuela, ghosted through the Congo, and supposedly vanished after a NATO raid went sideways. I'd worked with him, trusted him, but he played a double game, got men killed. One of them wore my last name. "Are you sure?" I asked. Moloch nodded once. "Word is, he's back. Working freelance. Rumor says Voss bought him." That twisted the knife deeper. This wasn't just about Voss anymore. This was blood. This was unfinished history with a heartbeat. I made my way downstairs and opened locker 3. Inside, a disassembled AR-15, a Glock 19 with a threaded barrel, encrypted comms gear, and something I hadn't touched in years. My old tactical vest, still bearing the scorch mark from the IED blast that nearly ended me. I geared up, checked each mag, and clipped the vest into place. I felt like a man waking from a coma. Every click of metal reminded me who I was. Outside, the city kept moving like none of this mattered, but I was no longer a bystander. I was a variable, an unaccounted-for anomaly in Voss's perfect machine.
You can plan a war room down to the millisecond, but the moment you bring in people, everything becomes chaos wrapped in personality. I didn't just need allies. I needed liabilities who could break systems better than they broke promises. So I found Lena Miles in a Chinatown basement, living among half-shredded subpoenas and old evidence boxes. She looked like hell. Baggy sweatshirt, hair tied in a knot, shadows under her eyes, but her brain was still dangerous. "They tried to scrub me," she said, without turning around, "but they forgot I built half the scrubber protocols." "I need your help," I said. "I don't help anyone anymore." I slid the cartel-engraved cufflink onto the table, watched her eyes narrow. "That's Voss's?" she asked. "Yours if you want it. You break into his penthouse, I'll break his kingdom." She leaned back. "You're insane." "I was trained to be." She chuckled, dry and bitter. "You always this charming, or is it just near-death trauma?" We shook on it 5 minutes later. Rook was next. 16, maybe 17, scar across his eyebrow, hoodie 3 sizes too big, and fingers fast enough to lift your wallet before your pulse could catch up. I found him tagging the edge of a surveillance tower in Queens, ironically funded by Voss Dynamics. "You the guy blowing up on dark forums?" he asked. "They say someone lit up Stratcor's Brooklyn node." "Wasn't me," I said, "but I need a ghost who knows rooftops and tunnels." He smirked. "I'm not a ghost, I'm the glitch in their perfect system." Good enough. We made camp in an old train yard, Lena rigging up signal jammers and thermal countermeasures, while Rook memorized guard routes and sewer entry points like they were lyrics to his favorite song. The gala was 2 nights away. Voss's penthouse sat like a crown atop the Voss Dynamics spire, 120 stories up, protected by biometric walls, motion sensors, and a defense grid wired through multiple redundant security systems. "He's got watchers everywhere," Lena warned. "Street cameras, building supers, even homeless informants on his payroll. If he suspects something, he responds fast and brutal." "Meaning what?" I asked. "Meaning if we try anything stupid, he'll mobilize his private army, Stratcor mercenaries, ex-military contractors who shoot first and never ask questions." We went in during the distraction window, 9:47 p.m. Voss would be giving a speech to investors while showing off a new prototype drone. Rook came in from above, climbing scaffolding no human should be able to reach, then cut the external comm relays using wire cutters and a portable signal jammer. Lena spoofed the facial scans using an old photo of Elias's brother who died in an alleged hiking accident, combined with prosthetic makeup that could fool even high-resolution cameras. Me, I walked through the front, dressed as a Stratcor contractor, visor down, ID tag blinking green courtesy of Lena's hacking skills. The elevator took me to the 118th floor. From there, we used a service hatch and slipped into the high-security zone. And that's when the building's security chief noticed the anomalies. "Unauthorized movement patterns detected," a voice crackled through hidden speakers, "not artificial, but very much human." Marcus Webb, Voss's head of security, ex-Delta Force, a man who knew how to read people like code. "Hello, soldier," Webb's voice echoed through the hallway intercom. "You brought friends. How charming." Lena froze. "He's tracking us through the building sensor grid." Webb switched tactics, activating recorded audio through the building's PA system. Static at first, then my voice. "You are hereby dishonorably discharged for conduct unbecoming."
My discharge hearing, word for word. That cold, quiet room, the judge's face. "Stop it!" I hissed. "No," said Webb through the speakers. "Let's relive the moment. You cried, didn't you? No, wait, you didn't, because crying means you have something left to lose." Lena's face went pale. Then he turned on her. A recording, her voice, strained and desperate, begging the Bureau not to bury evidence of the prison abuse scandal. "Lena Miles, we thank you for your service, but you are now considered hostile to national security." Rook's voice cracked. "This guy's got files on everyone." "No," I whispered, "he's just playing mind games." We sprinted through the East Corridor, dodging internal security drones, mechanical crawlers that sent alerts to central monitoring. Rook threw a jamming grenade that fried 2, but 3 more emerged from wall panels. Lena hacked the security node and killed the lights. "We've got 60 seconds. Move!" We burst into Elias's office. No windows, just white marble, a glass desk, and a minimalist fireplace. I scanned the room and spotted it. Beneath the floor panel behind the desk, a pressure-lock drawer. I cracked it with a sonic pin from my military kit. Inside, a physical ledger, bound in black leather, listing payouts with code names, cartel nicknames, U.S. company transfers, bribes. Beside it, a velvet case containing another cufflink, matching the one I found in the alley. A cartel crest, stylized dagger through a coin. Voss wasn't just working with the cartels, he was laundering for them through U.S. defense contracts. "Got it," I said, sealing the pouch. Then Webb's voice crackled through the intercom one more time. "All exits locked. Elevator control overridden. Security teams mobilizing." Gas hissed from the sprinkler system, tear gas mixed with something stronger. "Run!" Lena screamed, smashing the emergency panel to vent the hallway. We made it to the elevator shaft. Rook clipped a magnetic harness and zip-lined to the bottom first, his street-smart agility saving us precious seconds. Lena and I followed, but halfway down, the alarms changed pitch. Gunfire. Stratcor mercenaries had breached the building from multiple entry points. "Go!" I shouted. She dropped before me. By the time I hit the bottom, chaos had erupted in the lobby. But Lena was there, alive, dragging a wounded Rook behind concrete pillars as bullets sparked off marble walls. We made it to the emergency exit, but Webb's voice boomed through a handheld megaphone in the stairwell. "Surrender the ledger, and you all live," he called out. "Keep running, and we hunt you down like the terrorists you are." I looked at Lena and Rook, both bleeding, both exhausted, both still fighting. And I felt something inside me solidify. This wasn't a mission anymore. This was war. We holed up in an abandoned subway maintenance tunnel beneath the financial district. Rook sat on a rusted bench, his hand pressed against his wounded side, but his eyes still sharp. "If we go public now, he'll spin it. Call it deepfakes. Blame it on foreign interference." I said nothing, just stared at the ledger. I opened it again. Something felt off. One of the pages wasn't bound like the others. A loose sheet folded behind the back cover. When I pulled it free, I saw a signature that made my vision blur. Mercer. Colonel Elijah Mercer, my commanding officer in Kandahar. The man who called in the order that got my squad wiped. The man who swore he'd stand by me when I reported the falsified op logs. Instead, he ghosted. My tribunal was fast-tracked. My badge was stripped. And now here he was, inked into Voss's payout list. Not just a name, a partner. "I'm gonna take them both down," I said quietly. Rook winced as he shifted position. "How?" "The same way we got here. With fire." The final assault started with a blackout. Lena hacked into the city's electrical grid and triggered a controlled power failure that would give us 12 minutes before backup systems rerouted power to Voss Tower. I rode the maintenance elevator straight to the 117th floor, underneath the gala level, where Boss was entertaining his corrupt network of politicians and cartel financiers. Rook, despite his injury, insisted on joining me 2 floors up, crawling through a vent shaft with a stolen sidearm and enough painkillers to drop a horse. I mapped the guard routes, he said, breathing heavy but focused. But they're doubling patrols now. Webb's got them on high alert. Good, I said. Let them panic. We split at the glass atrium. I headed straight for Elias's private conference room. He was there, surrounded by men in expensive suits who looked like they'd ordered executions over cocktails. Charts on the walls showed trafficking routes, financial projections, human cargo manifests. When I kicked down the door, they scattered like roaches. All except Boss. He stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows, tailored suit immaculate, glass of scotch in hand. You never understood your place, Dante. Some men were made to follow, others to build empires. Is that what this is? An empire? Built on corpses and cash, I said. He raised the glass. Built on inevitability. I didn't wait for another word. I lunged. The glass shattered on the floor. He moved fast for a man who hadn't seen combat since prep school, but he wasn't ready for fury forged in 6 tours of hell. We crashed into the conference table. Papers flew. His hand found a ceramic blade hidden beneath the table's edge. He slashed, catching my forearm. I drove my knee into his ribs and flung him against the window. The bulletproof glass spiderwebbed but held. He staggered up, nose bleeding, teeth bared. I'm the future, he snarled. No, I said. You're the receipt. He tackled me. We slammed through the doorway back into the hallway. Emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red. That's when I heard Lena scream. Down the corridor, Webb had her at gunpoint, using her as a human shield while Rook tried to get a clear shot from behind an overturned desk. One trigger pull, that's all it takes. Drop your weapons, save the girl, or keep fighting, and she dies. Boss laughed, even as I kept him pinned against the wall. Your move, soldier, he hissed. I looked down the hall. Lena's eyes locked with mine, defiant even now, but I could see the fear beneath, and I made my choice. I let go Voss. Charged down the hallway. Webb turned his gun toward me, but Rook was ready. The kid put 2 rounds center mass into Webb's chest before the security chief could adjust his aim. Lena stumbled free, gasping, but Voss was escaping through the emergency stairwell. I heard the helicopter rotors spinning up on the roof. Not today, I muttered, grabbing Rook's spare magazine. I took the stairs 3 at the time, emerging onto the helipad just as Voss was climbing into the cockpit of his private chopper. The rotors were spinning faster now, preparing for takeoff. I raised my weapon. It's over, Elias. He leaned out of the pilot's seat, smiling like the devil himself. It'll never be over, he shouted back. I built this system. Cut off 1 head, 2 more. I put a round through the helicopter's fuel line. The explosion lit up half of Manhattan. When the smoke cleared, there was nothing left but twisted metal and the smell of justice finally served. There's a moment, after the war ends but before the rebuilding begins, where silence hangs heavy. Not peace, not yet. Just the stillness before the truth lands. That's where we stood, Lena, Rook, and I, on the roof of Voss Tower, watching the city lights flicker back on as power was restored. The world was about to start listening. Lena had already uploaded everything to every major news outlet, government watchdog, and international human rights organization.
The ledger's contents, the video evidence from the burner phone, bank records, cartel connections, all of it would be front-page news by morning. Rook sat on a concrete barrier, his wound properly bandaged now thanks to a first aid kit we'd found in Webb's security office. The kid was pale, but grinning. "You realize what we just did?" he asked. "We exposed the truth," Lena said simply. "No," he said, his grin widening. "We just proved that 3 nobodies can take down a billionaire if they're angry enough and stupid enough to try." I lit a cigarette, my first in hours, and looked out over the city. "What's next?" Lena asked. Before I could answer, sirens began wailing in the distance. FBI, ATF, probably Interpol too, given the international scope of what we'd uncovered. "Next, you two become famous, whistleblowers, heroes, the faces of justice." "And you?" Rook asked. I took a long drag, then flicked the cigarette into the night. "I disappear." Lena stepped closer. "You don't have to." "Yeah, I do. This was never about glory. This was about keeping a promise." I pulled out my brother's dog tag. Somehow, miraculously, I'd found it in Webb's personal effects. The bastard had kept it as a trophy. McGill's name caught the light from the distant news helicopters already circling the building. "Promise kept," I whispered. 6 months later, the world was a different place. The Voss empire collapsed overnight. Dozens of politicians resigned in disgrace. 3 cartel kingpins were extradited to face trafficking charges. The FBI's public corruption unit had enough evidence to prosecute cases for the next decade. Lena became the star witness in congressional hearings, her testimony helping to pass the most comprehensive anti-trafficking legislation in U.S. history. She founded the Transparency Project, funded by seized Voss assets, dedicated to protecting whistleblowers and investigating corporate corruption. And Rook? The kid cleaned up his act, used his hacking skills to help the FBI track down the remaining cartel networks, got his GED, then a full scholarship to MIT's computer science program. Last I heard, he was working on cybersecurity for human rights organizations, teaching other kids from the streets that there was a way out, a way up. From heroes to leaders, from the streets to the halls of power. As for me, I kept my promise to disappear. But strange things began happening around the world. A trafficking ring in Bangkok mysteriously had their communications intercepted and delivered to local police. A corrupt arms dealer in Somalia found his bank accounts drained overnight, the money transferred to refugee assistance programs. A cartel safe house in Mexico City burned to the ground with military precision, its occupants vanishing into the night. No signatures, no calling cards, just a debt being paid, one operation at a time. Sometimes, late at night, in whatever city I found myself in, I'd catch a news report, Lena giving a speech about transparency in government, Rook demonstrating new cybersecurity protocols to a room full of senators. They'd made it out of the shadows and into the light, exactly where they belonged. Me? I belonged in the spaces between, where justice lived when the courts failed, where truth spoke when the media went silent. I was the ghost in their machine now, and I was just getting started. Because for every Elias Voss who thought money made them untouchable, there was a Dante Cruz in the shadows, keeping score, and the ledger was far from balanced. In the end, they say rock bottom has a smell. But I learned something else down there in the gutter where Voss threw my brother's memory. Sometimes rock bottom isn't the end. Sometimes it's the foundation you build your war on. And this war was just beginning. Have you subscribed to our channel yet? Go on, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell for more stories from the shadows of justice.